to anyone out there who wants to go fast.
I want to go fast.
All right, hey everybody, Justin Reale here, pro triathlete. I'm here with Brian Stover.
Hi, I'm Brian from Accelerate 3 Coaching, and I've been doing some wind tunnel testing now for about 11 or 12 years. And with Justin today, this is his first trip, and I'm really excited to see the changes we can make. Justin, what are some of the things that you're looking to test?
Yeah, so we're obviously riding the Felt IA 2.0 with the NV wheels, the 6.7 hookless front, and the disc in the back. And I'll be wearing the Wind CDA Aero kit, size small, nice and snug. So really from there, we're going to be looking at the fit. So we're going to be changing the angle, stack height, and reach. And this is a custom setup from First Wheel New Zealand. Dan over there sent this little adjustable cockpit, which will replace my rigid titanium risers that are not adjustable. So based on the findings today, we'll then adjust the fit and create some new risers and a new cockpit if needed. So we'll start with the fit, Brian,
Yep.
and then I think after that, we'll test a few different helmets. We'll look at the HJC Adwatt, the POC Tempor, the Giro Arrowhead, and the Cask Mistral. So we'll run through those 4 tests, and then we'll mess around with some creative bottle placements. Brian here has advised me to take a reductive strategy, so we'll take things off rather than put them on, and we're starting with kind of a crazy bottle setup here.
We've actually had to use some duct tape to hold the bottles in. Duct tape is a wind tunnel tester's best friend.
Yeah, and then from there, we'll test out the new Wind CDA Aero socks, which I imagine we would just use in a full Ironman. That's non-wetsuit legal, so you'd put these on in T1. And then the calf sleeves, which are more of the every race type approach underneath the wetsuit. So we'll see if that's faster than the bare meaty calf skin.
Yeah, and socks and calf sleeves are very individualistic, and the results can vary drastically. So this will be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll probably be here 3 hours or so. Stay tuned. We'll be grabbing some footage. Kyle is not here today, but we'll do our best, and then we'll share all the findings. So really stoked. And thanks to the A2 Wind Tunnel for having us.
Yeah.
All right. I was really excited to get a trip to the wind tunnel. Let me start over. All right, it is January 31st. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the wind tunnel for the very first time ever and learned a lot. It was an awesome experience. I've been wanting to go to a wind tunnel for a long time, obviously watching the top pros in and out of there at different places, the Silverstone Engineering Hub in the UK and the A2 wind tunnel in North Carolina, where Ben Canute and Lionel had been. So for the last, I would say, year since turning pro, it's been on my mind. But when my season ended a bit earlier and I skipped New Zealand, I put the plans in place to really go. And I was able to add it onto a work trip where I was already going to Austin. And I said, screw it, I'm gonna bring my bike and then I'll extend the trip to North Carolina. It's the perfect time to do it in January. And so I had the opportunity to go out with Brian from Arizona, Brian Stover of Accelerate 3 Coaching. He came and he was my guide. I actually posted on Slow Twitch before going to the wind tunnel a little thread that you can check out called Help a Pro Prep for His First Trip to the Wind Tunnel. And one of the most common comments that I got in that thread was, you really need to bring somebody to the wind tunnel or you're gonna bleed time, and time is money in the wind tunnel, running in and out, trying to interpret the data yourself, trying to decide what to test next. It's so nice to have somebody with experience to tell you, hey, here's how you should test, what different yaw angles, which are the wind angles, and be your runner and wrencher to be able to make those adjustments to the front end, run a helmet in there. So it was just so awesome having him, and he did such a great job. Definitely an expert for me, and I would highly recommend anybody who's going to the wind tunnel or doing outdoor aero testing in Arizona to work with Brian. So high praise. So I went and learned a lot. You know, my objective was to just see if I was dialed. You know, I've basically taken the approach that most other pros and amateurs have, which is to copy what the top guys in the world are doing. And it seems, hey, the between the arm bottle is a little bit faster, or the chest bottle last year, that was a common trend. It's no secret which helmets are being most commonly used in Kona and at the top of the pro ranks. And so last year, my approach was, hey, I'm gonna copy all that stuff. I'm gonna get the Aero one-piece front end. I'm gonna get a new fast helmet. I'm gonna wear the calf sleeves. But really, when you're getting and searching for those fine margins, it's highly, highly individual. And the only way to really figure it out is to go to the wind tunnel.
So what were your objectives of going there?
Yeah, I wanted to test 4 things. The first was my position. So adjusting both the stack height, the angle, and the reach of the front end. To do that, I worked with Dan from First Wheel New Zealand.
Yeah, go for it.
Kyle, this is Dan from First Wheel. He's helping me with the with the custom aero bar as a result of the wind tunnel testing.
Oh, sweet, dude. Are you making mine too?
Absolutely.
It's the friends and family sponsorship.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, nice to meet you, Kyle.
Nice to meet you too, man. What are we talking
So
about?
this, we're looking at the difference between the size 54 felt IA 2.0 and the 56.
Okay.
And we've been looking at like the differences in the reach and the stack height, and Dan is gonna make. It's basically you're 3D printing the titanium risers, is that right? Who is my sponsor that makes the custom front end, and he does custom carbon for the New Zealand Olympic team, and Braden Curry and Josh Amberger at Ash Gentle. So yeah, very reputable engineer, and he was able to ship me a custom piece that is not rideable outside, but it's perfect for the wind tunnel. It had these nice quick little butterfly things, and so we were able to make adjustments quickly, which is quite valuable in the wind tunnel since it's about $10 a minute. And so yeah, we tested the position. That took us about an hour and a half. Then I tested 3 different helmets, the HJC Adwatt, the Giro Arrowhead, the Casque Mistral, and then we tested calf sleeves, Wind Republic CDA calf sleeves and their calf socks versus skin. And then lastly, we tested bottle placement both between the arms and behind the saddle. And the results were pretty interesting, you know. Some of the changes were quite small, 1 to 2 theoretical watts at about 350 watts. And then some of the changes were quite big, over 10 watts. For example, changing my bar angle from 10 degrees to 30 degrees was, you know, a massive change in drag, likely because it changes your head position and the shoulder angle. You know, by coming up, you can develop that shrug a bit more, but everybody's individual. You know, you see some of the top guys with flat bars, you see some of the top guys with angled bars. And so, yeah, it was pretty awesome. About 3 hours total, and it's just super intense. You know, you get in there, it's incredibly loud. You have to hold position, you cannot move or it hurts the data. And then it's just, you know, 7-8 minute run, one after another with super quick transitions. And so I was absolutely exhausted. At one point I just like sprinted out of the wind tunnel and chugged a Red Bull and then ran back in. Cause you have to be just like super locked in. And so despite not really pushing big power, you know, you're in there and you're dialed.
So why don't you want to share any of your data results to people?
I mean, I don't not want to. Should I?
I mean, I know them. I don't know if the people should know them.
So it's interesting, you know, you spend all this money, you know, it's like thousands of dollars. And so you're like, maybe I should keep all this to myself and keep it a secret and not put it on YouTube. But at the same time, the margins of what I'm chasing are so individual that like, sure, you can try to copy it like I did last year and you might be 20 watts slower. So yeah, I'll share it. I mean, the position, I ended up coming up and out a bit and then changing the angle of the bar from 25 to 30 degrees. Maybe that'll be faster for you, maybe it won't be. But for me, it's a bit more comfortable without a loss. And then I was able to extend the pit. So actually the result is that I'm gonna be on a 56 frame this year instead of a size 54. Just to develop that reach and keep everything the same except just come out and up. So excited about that. The second thing was the helmets. I'm gonna go with the Casque Mistral this year. That certainly won't be a surprise since that'll be the helmet I'm running in Oceanside. So the feed is, I think shipped it today and I'm excited about that. I was in the HJC Adwatt and it was quite fast and the Giro Arrowhead was also quite fast. The Casque Mistral just edged them out barely. So the helmets were the smallest margins. You know, I think the lesson learned is like, if you're in a fast helmet, it's probably pretty fast. So that one is highly individual as well. And you know, I think with helmets, you want functionality. You want the big visor, you want something that's comfortable, you want something that breathes. I chose not to even test the POC Tempor because I've worn that helmet and it acts like a sail as soon as your head pops up. And in a 70.3 race, like it's dynamic, you're looking around, you gotta look behind you, you gotta look up. So I didn't want to wear that thing. I just think it's fairly cheaply made. So the Casque Mistral is just a super solid helmet. I used to wear the Casque Bambino, so no, it's a really well-built helmet with good visibility and it tests really freaking fast for me. The last thing, two more things. The first was the wind calf sleeves. This is probably the one secret I don't want to give away, but Brian assures me that calf sleeves are not always faster for every single athlete. But I'm just gonna say the Win CDA calf sleeves versus my bare skin were way faster. So I was excited about that. It basically just confirmed do not race with bare skin. And they were so much faster that in a full distance Ironman, like I would actually consider putting them on in T1, even though you can't swim with them if it's a non-wetsuit race. So it's just interesting to kind of learn those differences and think about the trade-offs you might make. You know, we've seen guys like Sam Laidlow take the time in T1 to put on super long socks. You know, the data supports it for certain athletes, but not for all athletes. And then lastly, we tested the bottle placements. I don't think it'll be a surprise to anybody that the 2 bottles between the arms double stacked tested fastest for me. I also tested like the aero fairing on the bottle, like the rounded cap. That was actually slower for me, despite, intuitively you would think it was faster. So that's one of those things, like not chasing every little marketing gimmick to find aerodynamic gains. When you're guessing, you're guessing. And I would have guessed it would be faster, and it was slower. So the 3 bottles was not faster. There was some photos that I posted on Instagram because we started with the fully loaded setup. We ended up taking that 3rd bottle off, and I was able to get my head down a little bit more. So basically ended up going with 2, and then 2 bottles behind the saddle was just barely slightly faster than 1 bottle behind the saddle. Not enough to make a noticeable difference, but it's nice to know that, especially for a full distance race, I can actually run 4 bottles with almost no aerodynamic loss, even though I'd be weighed down. So that would be the trade-off, is aerodynamic savings versus weight. And we have all the specifics for me now to make those small calculations. But after all 4 of those things were dialed, the total savings was, I basically went from 0.240 CDA, which is pretty bad, honestly, for somebody at my level at the pro field. Like, if you're running 0.240 CDA, like, you are not really going to be in the race unless you want to push an extra 20 watts. And so I was able to save those 20 watts and get down to 0.220 by the end of the testing day. And hopefully I can develop and adapt to that position and hold super still and run 0.220 CDA in the race. But I'll be able to now take my race data and triangulate out based on the crosswinds and the conditions of the day to see what my real life CDA is in the wild, at Oceanside and St. George and some of these other races I'm doing. So yeah, I won't be going back to the wind tunnel probably until next year, but I do think it's like a once a year trip for me just to make sure everything's dialed and test new equipment. But well worth the trip, and excited to see what it brings. I do think if you're chasing those small gains, I'd recommend it, but it's not the magic bullet. I need to get back to work and stack up a bunch of consistent weeks, and ultimately you just got to get stronger.
So is your reach going to be as far out as like Christian and Gustav's that we saw this year?
I mean, when they posted those videos before Kona,
I thought it was a troll.
I thought it was a troll too.
Yeah.
And then I think some of it was. Yes, they came out, but not as much as those videos and photos showed. So no, it's pretty reasonable reach. I think it looks a bit, I think my fit looks a lot like Sam Laidlow's in Kona, just up and out and pretty comfortable fit where you can push power and hopefully run off the bike well. So that's ultimately way more important. If you're losing 5 watts, but you're able to fire the muscles that allow you to run well, like, that's a worthwhile trade-off to make. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've never ridden a 56 size TT bike, so you just need to adapt to the feel and the handling a little bit over the couple weeks before the race once I get the bike and the front end in. So yeah, man, I mean, none of this really matters until we get to races. Like, I'm waking up and going to bed every day these days thinking about the season. We have a stacked season plan, which I'll unveil in probably our next video with my plans and why I selected the different races that I plan to do this year and how I'm building a season. But for now, just back to work and trying to stack up a bunch of consistent weeks, but not get too antsy. I've been talking about my training on the road to Oceanside on a podcast on Patreon, hosted by the Triathlon Hour with 2 other pros, Ari Clow and Greg Harper. Shout out to those guys. So check out the podcast on Patreon if you haven't already. It's only, I think, like $18 a month, basically, to get access to our weekly episodes. We're sharing all the data of our training sessions, our approaches, why we're doing certain things. So yeah, really stoked for Oceanside, and all eyes on that right now.